Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens, where we challenge the headlines, examine the facts, and explore the economic and political forces shaping our lives. Every week, we dig beneath the surface to ask not just what happened, but why it happened, who benefits, and what it means for ordinary Americans. If you appreciate thoughtful, evidence based discussions that go beyond the daily news cycle, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and join the conversation, and let us dive right into it. Tonight we're talking about something every American depends on, but few fully understand: the hidden economics of healthcare corruption. When most people hear the phrase healthcare fraud, they picture a headline, a courtroom, or a mugshot. It feels distant, like someone else's crime, someone else's problem. But what is the assumption is wrong? What if healthcare fraud isn't simply about criminals stealing money from the government? What if it actually is a system of a much larger economic problem, one that quietly affects taxpayers, employers, hospitals, physicians, insurance companies, and ultimately every patient who walks through the door of an emergency room? Recently, the U.S. Department of Justice has announced what it described as the largest healthcare fraud enforcement action in American history. Federal prosecutors charged hundreds of defendants in connection with alleged schemes involving more than $6.5 billion in fraudulent claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, and private insurers. According to investigators, the alleged schemes included phantom billing, medically unnecessary procedures, illegal kickbacks, fraudulent telemedicine operations, identity theft, and other forms of deception. As with any criminal prosecution, these allegations must be proven in court, and every defendant is presumed innocent unless found guilty through the judicial process. The size of the investigation understandably captured national attention, but perhaps the more important question is this: what does a fraud case of this magnitude tell us about the incentives within one of the biggest industries in the American economy? Healthcare accounts for nearly 1/5 of the nation's economic output. It employs millions of Americans, supports countless communities, and consumes trillions of dollars every year. Yet, unlike many industries, healthcare operates within a uniquely complex financial system where the patients rarely pay the full cost of care directly. Insurers negotiate reimbursement rates, the government programs cover millions of beneficiaries, and providers navigate thousands of billing codes and regulatory requirements. That complexity makes the modern medicine possible, but it also creates opportunities for abuse. The economists often say that markets function best when the prices reflect the value and the competition rewards efficiency. Healthcare doesn't always behave like a traditional market. Patients often make decisions under stress. Emergencies leave little room to shop for prices, and third-party payment systems separate consumers from the true cost of service. Those characteristics create vulnerabilities that dishonest actors may attempt to exploit, and when the fraud occurs, the financial consequences extend well beyond the immediate loss. Resources are diverted, oversight expands, administrative costs rise, and trust in the system begins to erode. Consider the concept of opportunity cost. Every dollar allocated to one purpose cannot simultaneously be used for another. If public or private healthcare funds are improperly diverted through fraudulent claims, those dollars are unavailable to support legitimate patient care, invest in medical innovation, and strengthen rural, modernized, aging healthcare infrastructure. While no one can say exactly how every recovered dollar would otherwise have been spent, the economic principles remains clear. The resources are finite, and misuse carries consequences. Healthcare fraud also reveals something deeper about the incentives. In an in any economic system, incentives influence behavior. When the financial rewards become disconnected from patient outcomes, this risk of abuse increases. And that's why law prohibiting kickbacks, false claims, and fraudulent billing exists in the first place, to protect the integrity of medical decision making and ensure that healthcare dollars follow patients' needs rather than personal profit. Most healthcare professionals dedicate their lives to serving patients ethically and compassionately. Yet large fraud investigations remind us that even a relatively small number of bad actors can undermine the confidence in our institutions that millions rely upon every day. This is where the conversation becomes more nuanced than simple accusations of corporate greed. Businesses exist to generate returns for owners and investors, and earning a profit through lawful, ethical healthcare services is not corruption. The problem arises when financial incentives encourage illegal conduct, deceptive billing, or decisions that place revenue ahead of patient welfare. The corporate governance, regulatory oversight, internal compliance, and ethical leadership all play critical roles in preventing those incentives from crossing legal and moral boundaries. The consequences of fraud ripple outward in ways that are often invitable to the public. Government agencies devote significant resources to investigations, audits, compliance programs, and advanced fraud detection systems. Insurer companies invest heavily in claims review, cybersecurity, and analytics designed to identify suspicious billing patterns. The hospitals and physicians practice employ compliance officers, coding specialists, legal counsel, and auditors to ensure that the legitimate claims meet increasingly complex requirements. These safeguards are necessary, but they also increase the administrative costs of delivering the health care. The time spent documenting claims, responding to audits, and navigating reimbursement rules is the time that clinicians cannot spend directly caring for their patients. It is important, however, not to oversimplify the causes of rising healthcare costs. Hospital staffing shortages, insurance premiums, deductibles, and patient wait times are influenced by many factors, including labor markets, inflation, pharmaceutical prices, demographic changes, reimbursement policies, and advances in medical technology. Healthcare fraud is not the sole explanation for the challenges, but economists generally agree that the fraud contributes to broader system costs by diverting the resources and increasing the expense of administering the healthcare. In other words, fraud acts as another layer of financial pressures on already complex and costly systems. Perhaps the greatest loss is one that cannot easily be measured in dollars: public trust. The patients trust that physicians recommend treatments because they are medically appropriate. Taxpayers trust that public health care programs are managed responsibly, and honest providers trust that competitors are following the same ethical rules. When the trust is shaken by allegations of widespread fraud, restoring the confidence requires more than the convictions. It requires transparency and accountability, affects oversight, and a commitment to ensuring that the healthcare resources are used for the people they were intended to serve. So tonight our goal isn't merely to examine a record-breaking fraud investigation. Our goal is to understand what these allegations reveal about the economics, and our goal is to understand what these allegations reveal about the economics of healthcare, the incentives that shape the complex systems, and the responsibilities shared by the government. Businesses, healthcare professionals, and public, because the true cost of corruption isn't measured only in billions of dollars. It is measured in the opportunity to improve lives, strengthen the communities, and preserve confidence in one of the most essential institutions in American society. I want to thank you once again for tuning in to the Unfiltered Political Lens, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.